Hello again. This is Growing Up in the Wilds of Suburbia, and I am the host, Chad Everett Broshears. And I wanted to talk just briefly. What the hell? I just wanted to talk a little bit about responsibility and being responsible, and how that is related to becoming successful in life. But first off, I do want to address something as I'm a huge fan of linguistics and the nature of the words chosen and the depth of meaning that word has for you. And me saying a brief video is really coming from not wanting to go on and drum on about something specific or anything in particular. There's something specific. It's more, it also has gotten to the point it became kind of a placekeeper in the conversation that facilitates the same value as or that kind of thing that comes up in speech whenever somebody's not really thinking enough. So enough about that for the time being. But I did want to address it because, again, it is something that I'm actively working on, and I prefer to have a lot of value to the words chosen. So not speaking in error of my real intent. So, all right. So responsibility. I'm becoming more and more aware of how people will sit back. They look at a superficial position and they'll say, because of the color of that person's skin, or because of the family heritage, or it's because they're lucky, or whatever it is, people don't look at a depth to what it took to get someplace. Now, there are people in the gym that say, well, because a guy is rather muscular or really lean, could be 220 pounds at 7 or 8% body fat, and immediately default that guy, roughly about 6 feet tall, something like that, default the guy's probably taking steroids, because the efforts that person, let's say, like I say that about somebody, it would be based off of the effort that I put into the workouts, the knowledge base that I've accumulated both experientially as well as through any research that I might have done that would have me lead to that conclusion, because I have not accomplished that myself. And I could say that. Now, whether the guy is or isn't, I wasn't there to see him put the needle in or to take the actual steroids. I wasn't there for that. But I was there to see the person and to make a judgment call to accept that I'm not there. And if I'm working out on a regular basis, I may default that person's taking steroids because I haven't achieved it in the timeline that I've done it, because of the success rate that I've experienced. I'm not measuring how long he's been doing it for, how serious he takes his diet and his workout regimen, what's the motive behind it, why is he doing it, the genetic variable that's always present, which maybe he's a muscular type individual genetically, that it gives him an advantage to becoming muscular faster. I actually have a friend of mine, his last name's Lim, but he goes by that. And when he was my client, I had to change his program 3 times in the course of 2 months because he was putting on too much size too quickly, and he didn't want to be muscular like that. He wanted to have the athletic build, not the bodybuilder build. So he just had that predominance, and those people are out there. So I could look at it from that, not consider any of those variables that I'd mentioned, and just jump to the quickest conclusion, because I'm not being responsible for my effort, and I'm critically judging against his effort to make me feel better that I haven't achieved it, and that perhaps I'm not open to taking steroids, and therefore I'm not likely going to give that guy credit. And whenever I make that statement to myself or openly to somebody else, I am reducing his credibility for the effort that he's put into it, because it doesn't make sense to me. So therefore it must be that. We can say the same thing about people that that have a lot of wealth or that are successful in life, and say, oh, it's because they're lucky or because they got a hand up. There are so many things that you can be responsible for right now in your life to start accumulating something. To give another idea, or just a real example of this for me, I was speaking with a friend of mine that I grew up with, mostly grew up with. And her and I were speaking about, like where we were and things, just kind of catching up. And she asked me, obviously a few of the catch-up questions. And I had mentioned, hey, if you ever want to, you can come over. We can have, like I've got a pool, a hot tub. You can throw a party. This is well predating the Corona issues and all of that. So it's like, what, I could host a party. It's a feasible thing. And she's like, well, you must be doing really well for yourself. You own a home, and it's 3-bedroom, 2-bath, and you have a pool and a hot tub, and you have a yard and all of this. And her position was more, you're fortunate, you're lucky, something beneficial happened to you. And the reality of it is that the 7-day-a-week job, that working 12-hour days or more, and there were definitely days that I worked well over 12, to get better at my job, which I work in the fitness industry and management, and I've developed a skill set for fixing clubs, to redirecting and developing locations and the employees, and helping reestablish a culture. And I've done really well at that, but because I intended to do it. I started looking at where the need was, and I spent a lot of long hours. And there's a joke within myself and some of my close friends in the industry that I coined, called the divorce me hours, is I would work 7 days a week. When I wasn't clocked in, I would be on the phone with some of the people I knew in the industry that were really good at it. And I wanted to learn, not the secrets, I wanted to learn the patterns to success, because there's no secrets. The secret was work hard, keep your nose down, do your job. Now, be aware of your surroundings, learn how to adapt, because no gym is the same. None of them. You can have a large chain gym in one location, and the exact same company with the exact same gym with the exact same amenities in another location, and the gyms don't perform the same, because there's the community that they're in. There's everything about it that's there. I was studying that, and I still do study those aspects, because there's a lot to be told in that. So where I was being responsible was working long hours. Now, that came at a sacrifice. I had things that were affected in my life that came out of that, like having the divorce me hours, a relationship where the girl and I were working on, or the woman and I were working on, like, having a family. We were really putting an effort to start a family. And she had her health concerns, and I knew that with her health concerns, we were going to have to do, fertility treatments in order to conceive. So I had little awareness on what it took to run a business, a gym, successfully at this stage. I had friends that were successful, or became friends in the company as well as outside of the company. And I made up my mind. I would go in earlier. I would go in 2 hours before my shift would start, work the entire day, do all of the duties. The boss that I had at the time solely was like, this is what I'm going to teach you. And he taught me how to do the sales element, but he really didn't teach me the management element. He didn't teach me how to run the trainers. That's going to ring for a minute, unfortunately. He didn't teach me how to run the trainers. He didn't teach me how to hire, discipline, and terminate employees. He just, give it another second here. Okay, got it. Thank you. I'll actually need to research that so it doesn't continue to happen. Anyway, so I would spend an inordinate amount of time. I read every single document that was provided, where other people were sitting back, having a beer, going out with friends, whatever it was, and I was working. I was working because I needed to learn. I wasn't taking time off to go spend time with some of my best friends so that I could make sure that I wouldn't let the woman down in my life, that we were working on having a family. So I studied, I read every document. I recorded myself reading every document, which, for those of you that don't like the sound of your own voice, I'm one of them. And I had to record it while reading it. I had to listen to myself, critique myself, correct myself as I would read and then misread. And then I just had that little quirk where I read and And if I misread something, I read it again to make sure that I read it properly. So I did that, and I consistently did that to the point that I was really getting good. So I was turned loose from the incubation period, if you will, in the company. And I'm giving you the story because there's the responsibility piece that came out of it. So I started in this one location. It did not have a director, which is the training manager. He was newly appointed. He wasn't even certain he had that location either. I was going in as an assistant. And my boss at the time was recently promoted. He had his attention spread out, and he decided that after talking to me that if he didn't do something quick, he was going to lose me as his employee. I had at this point come from running my own business for 7 years, but I had the training side down, being a good personal trainer. I came from a physical therapy office working as a corrective exercise specialist. I had a lot of these benefits that I had down. That's the technician level, but I did not have the management level down. I didn't have the, again, hiring, disciplining, terminating, the managing the employees, all of that. I was only learning the sales side, how to generate new opportunities. I asked my boss specifically, how do I do these things? And he said, I really can't focus on that right now. I have these other things that I need to work on, but you can figure it out. Just trust yourself, was pretty much what he had told me, almost verbatim. So I learned a lot out of that. I came up with my own hiring process, which now it's a very strong and it's a very effective hiring process. That's 3 stages that uses multiple personalities in order to surface the individual you're interviewing, so that you can draw out the character, not the resume portrayal of that person, so that you can get a better understanding for the employee coming in, versus all of the different, the Myers and Briggs DISC assessments and all of those have value, but I was finding that a lot of people were just really good at interviewing, but not necessarily good at facilitating the job. So I had to learn a lot, and I came up with a different process there. Same thing with trainers and having issues with them, and where they would expect having the round robin mentality whenever I would sign up a new client, and then I would give that client to the trainer. The trainers were used to round robin, which is that person got one, I'm next in line, I get the next client. And I put the care back into it, which helps support the culture. There was a lot that I did with that, but I had to learn it all. So it took a lot of time. I was being very responsible for myself and doing what I could to be responsible for the commitment that I had with the woman that I was dating. That we were very, very serious about a long-term relationship that actually had children and family-centric. So I put in a lot of hours, only to have people look at it from the outside superficially, saying to themselves, it's just because he's lucky, or he has a knack, or he's just fortunate he got to the right club. No, I've been brought in many times to fix clubs, and it didn't matter where the club was at, what the club's amenities were, and all of that. But I only learned those skills because I was responsible for what I wanted to create, and I spent the time and put the hard work in. And that's the responsibility piece that's very valuable for people to accumulate. So as I'm speaking with this friend of mine, back to the original story, which is where she's like, well, you're really fortunate for where you are and what you have. And I'm fortunate because I decided to work my ass off to accomplish that goal. I'm not at the top of the success ladder that I'm after just yet, but I certainly have more control over the direction of my future than I did when I first started. Even when I ran my own company for 7 years, I was subject to every facility that I worked inside of that was negotiated and then technician level understanding. And it wasn't for the growth of this wonderful company. It was for the support of the company I worked with, not for my own growth. So I had to learn a lot, and I have. And I've used stress as tuition for the future degree that I'm accomplishing. So every time that I run into a wall that makes me feel highly stressed, I look at it and say that's tuition, and I'm paying this for the future that I want to see as a part of my reality. So that's tuition stress. And the other elements, I looked at how well I did at the job and how I was acknowledged at the job as being my report card for who I was and the skills that I was acquiring. Because I looked at it, and there's 3 different ways of acquiring those skills. I could hire somebody to teach me what was necessary in order to be successful. I could read a book on how to become successful and possibly be able to translate that into the actual reality of work and modify it. or I could put myself in the environment that said whether or not I kept my job was the first stage of the report card. And then from there was how well was I doing based off how much money I earned, my client satisfaction, employee retention, trainer retention, the cross training that went on with front desk staff and other members of the employee staffing, all of that, the fellow managers, peers, managing up, not just down, which is what a lot of people fall victim to. They don't know how to manage up and down. So there was a lot of that I had to learn, put myself in there, and that was the report card. And before long, it wasn't long at all, actually. It was my very first month in the company, turned loose as a director, and I got a call from my boss, and he said, "Chad, what are you doing?" And I was sitting at my desk. I was about to make some phone calls to confirm the next appointments. And I just answered the phone, and I defaulted I was in trouble. It's like, "Chad, what are you doing?" Like, "Well, I'm sitting at my desk, and I'm doing my job." "Why? What's wrong?" And he goes, "No, Chad, I need you to tell me, what are you doing?" And I'm like, "I just told you." He goes, "You're number one in the company." Like, what? How the hell am I number one in the company? Like, this is my first month doing the job, and all I'm doing is doing what you guys taught me to do. Now, granted, I have a really good friend that I was sent to train with prior to getting the club, and I give him credit, a degree of credit. His name's Rade, or he goes by RJ. Sorry, RJ, I'm not going to say your last name for a couple of reasons. One major reason is because I still don't pronounce it right, and we've all grown accustomed to knowing him as RJ. But he was really essential in my development because he was the guy that taught me the other pieces, not just the sales side. He taught me other things, not the total culture piece and all of that. I accumulated those things as time went on, but he is absolutely detrimental in my development in the early stages. And thank you so much for answering the phone when I called when we were done with a long day of work, and for taking the calls on the weekends when we finally had time off with our partners. Thank you for that. That phone call was also him being responsible to me for the dedication that we had for each other being great. Again, it's responsibility. So with that, the report card was telling me a lot of those things, and that's how I learned if I was good at what I did. It wasn't always that I got the feedback that I was looking for, because unfortunately in the industry, you don't always get the feedback that validates for all of your hard work, what you miss sleep for, what you stress over in the long hours you put in and everything else. There are other ways to validate who you are and what you do than to just have somebody say "attaboy" or "attagirl." So with that, personal responsibility. It's easy to look in and say it's just because of the color of his skin or whatever it is that you want to default. But know that every single time you make a statement like that and you disempower yourself by taking your responsibility away, by making sense that the other person had a privilege, you have denied yourself access to the future that you could have learned had you actually paid attention to that person. It is you that's holding yourself back because you're the one making the statement that is a statement to hold you back. Stop doing that. We're in a society now that seems to look for credibility and outrage. You can join that mob if you want. You're going to blend in with the rest of them. You're not going to go very far. You may be the king of regret or the king of outrage, but I got to tell you, it's not the person I want to invite to my party. It's not the person that I want to be able to put into my sphere so that whenever I say, look, I have a very interesting situation I'm going through and I'd like your insight, and all you want to do is produce outrage into that, I'm going to exclude you from that circle if you don't have the resources to bring to it, because I want to contribute to your success the same as mine. But if all you want to do is sit back and gripe, you're not in my group. And that's the way that we work as a human being. We're looking for the right tribe to belong to so we can find the greatest success that our life could possibly have. And if you're in that outrage mob and outrage tribe, don't be surprised if it doesn't eat you as well at some point in time. Every time you take a thought and you get outraged by that thought, and then you spread that thought to another person and have them become equally outraged or involved or enrolled into your outrage, you're training them to become outraged at you at some point in time. It's like it's creating the wilderness in civility. And we don't need that as a species. We don't need that. We're better off if we start looking back at where we are defaulted at what we think and how we project our thoughts onto other people, and also where we are in need of development. You're responsible for your development, not somebody else. The government isn't responsible for your development. They put you through primary schools because that is the base level necessary in the earlier stages and structures of our country. in order to make sure that you're able to work in the society, make a living, and be able to produce something that helps the nation produce. That's what the primary schools are for. The higher level schools, we go off into the higher academia, community colleges to universities. That's to help you develop a specialty and a craft of some sort, where you actually can contribute at another level beyond just the people that finish grade 12. That's it. That's the structure and the design and the benefits of it and all the rest of that. But you have a choice to make the decisions. If you say, well, I can't do this because of that reason, you're the one that decided it. Of course, you can't do it with that attitude. If somebody else pisses you off, did you know that spite has energy, can produce meaningful results? Shame has it too. We're in a society, we are in a society now that says shame is a bad thing, but then we resort to shame as a part of our outrage option. We say bullying is bad, never bully. Bullying is part of hierarchy placement. The same people that reach for shame also reach to bully. They're trying to bully by numbers. Doxing is an example of bullying. There's all kinds of insanity that's out there. If you spend your time developing yourself that way, don't be surprised that society has very few places for you. As soon as the outrage disappears, you're very likely to lose any element for developmental direction in your life. You have reprogrammed or you have conditioned yourself to really just disrupt systems. And if you think the people that are disrupting systems right now are going to successfully establish systems later, you're wrong. They have not developed the patterns for establishing systems. They have developed the pattern for disrupting systems. You may have outliners that do that, but overall, the dominant bulk is you're just exchanging one system for another, and you're going to find yourself in the same place, but upset and frustrated. Stop. Be responsible now. Grow into the direction of your goals. Make sure that your goals have long-term benefit for you and the people that you want to be in your life, not just the instantaneous reward, who's the most pissed off, who has the highest blood pressure, raise their voice the highest, or whatever it is. Be responsible. If you want something different in your life, responsibility is the stepping stone to get there. And if you're not willing to be responsible and you're willing to blame somebody else, don't be surprised if you need government intervention to have what they have. Stop it. Grow up in responsibility. Stop taking it away from yourself and then giving up all of these wonderful things that you can have. One final thing, and then I'll let we'll stop the video for now, is people look and say that, well, the Rockefellers or these old money families they're crooked and that's why they are where they are. You don't understand the decisions they made. You don't know how long did they actually work to get where they are. You don't know the relationships overall. You don't understand their life. All you do is you understand how you have a narrative about how they have something you don't have, and therefore they must be wrong for having it. They have accumulated generations. Somebody needed to make up their mind at some point in time in that family's history in order to make that family what it is now. Somebody had to make that decision. Your family has made a lot of decisions that have accumulated to who you are. That's how our ancestors are not only genetically responsible for us, but also psychologically responsible for us. The same thing for your ancestors, our predecessors. Let's see. I'm throwing that way the hell off. The people that are going to follow you. Sorry, I'm drawing a blank. Blood sugar is getting low. So if you want to have what they have, don't try to take it by force, because at some point in time, somebody else is going to take it by force too. Take it by development. Take it by responsibility. And you're not taking what they have. You're creating your own. That is a place that gives such reward. So with that, guys, this is an area that I do have a good deal of passion in, because I am absolutely one that believes that if you work really hard for something, you'll elevate your status. Oh, put the effort in, work for it. That's it for now. Again, this is Chad Everett Brochures. I am the host of Growing Up the Wilds of Suburbia. And in the meantime, please continue to think critically. Start a pattern and a habit of thinking critically, and you'll get something different instead of the same old, which is what you get if you don't think critically. You fall into patterns and emotional directions. So Athena needs out, and I need to eat. So thanks for your time. If you have comments, please put them in the comment section. Also, feel free, share the video. I'm always looking to continue to grow the audience and support you guys and to help look deeper into anything. So again, thank you so much for your time. And in between now and the next one, think critically, guys and gals.